Hi Nigel, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. You?
I'm all right, thank you very much for asking. How's Thomas Callas? Obviously went off last Saturday. Any update on his fitness?
Yeah, he's fine. He's trained this week and he's recovered, so he'll be available to be selected, as they say.
That's very good news in a season of a few injuries. George Tanner back on the training ground. How close is he to a return to the first team squad?
No, not imminently. No, he's had as you know, it's a recurrence of a hamstring injury. So we'll be careful with that one. And he looks okay. He seems to be dealing with it in a very positive way. But when he'll be back in the squad, I'm not going to sort of give any timescale at the minute because I'm not overly sure. It'll depend on how he continues to I suppose develop his fitness.
And in terms of other team news, anyone available who hasn't been in recent weeks, or is it pretty much the same squad you've been working with in recent weeks?
Well, Rob Atkinson's looked pretty good in training, so he could be. He may be in my thoughts for the weekend in some way or other. So we've got players who are making progress, which is good for us because I think going into the last 11 games of the season, it would be nice to have a few different options.
And is Danny Simpson part of your plans? He hasn't featured for the first team in recent weeks.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Is that half an eye on the future? You're thinking of next season?
Yeah, I'm always thinking about both the present and the future. So that's, it's Danny's had a frustrating season on a personal level for him. So it's life.
And you're not someone who likes looking back, so let's look forward to Birmingham on Saturday. What do your team need to do better to get the desired result this weekend?
Replicate the previous home performances, really. 70 to 75% of the Swansea game was very, very good away as well. Preston away, we played very, very well. We've been doing okay, and then we throw in a curveball like last week, where actually we just didn't perform as a team. Too many players had an off day. It was frustrating for the players in particular. They very annoyed with themselves, really, how we didn't get going. So a missed opportunity, but that's I think we've seen that throughout the season so far, that we've struggled to maintain when we've hit good standards to maintain them. I think recently at home in particular we've been good, but this game at the weekend will be a tough challenge because they can be pretty direct and they've got some good players as well, but they can make it physical. So we're going to have to be able to deal with that side of the game. So last week let's put it down to a bad day at the office, so to speak.
Absolutely. And in terms of keeping a clean sheet, how important would that be this weekend?
It's more important to win the game, but if we can do both, then that would be great. So we are, we've had quite a tough week in terms of the type of training that we've done. A lot of it's been to do with defensive work, but of course, because of the players that we have within the squad as well, it's been a good counter-attacking week as well for our forwards. So it's always about trying to combine but all aspects of the game in training. But certainly we need to make it more difficult for teams to breach our defence.
Yeah, how important is a rare Tuesday off, spending some time with the players? How beneficial could that be going into the weekend?
Oh, I don't know. Time will tell. I don't I don't really think of it like that. I got asked after the game against Forest whether 3 games in a week's paid its price. I honestly don't think it should do necessarily. I don't think it's the physical numbers that were the problem necessarily. It's championship football, so you've got to get on with it. I don't really overthink all that type of stuff. It's just when you get a week to work on stuff, and we've got a lot of players, you'll know yourself, who have played an awful lot of minutes this season. So, whenever you get an opportunity to do different sort of work, it can be beneficial. And of course, there'll always be 1 or 2 players within the squad who we can offload a little bit on a week like this. So it's important to get the main work day right in terms of when you time it, so that there's enough time for players to recover and prepare for the game at the weekend, because that's the most important day.
And how beneficial for Nahki the minutes for the under-23s in the week? I know he got a couple of goals as well.
Yeah.
And has he almost been a victim of the good form of other strikers keeping him out of the first team in recent weeks?
Yeah, very much so. He has. Yeah, he's a good player. I know that what I do know about him is this: that he's been excellent around the place, and the very fact that he was keen himself to get some if you like, competitive pitch time, it shows you that he's still very switched on about trying to get himself into the best possible position, so that when he gets his chance he can take it. Felt for him last week as well, when difficult to go on as a sub in that game. So it was he's had a difficult season for a player who is used to playing regularly. So that in itself presents something more difficult, and he's one of our senior players as well, or one of our more senior players, and he wants to play. He's got a real enthusiasm to play football, but it's how it is. He's been a credit to himself. In the way he supports his teammates too. So, I've worked with players in the past who would react a bit differently to how he has, and that's not to say he's happy. Of course he's not. He wants to play, but he's conducted himself with a lot of professionalism, and I think that should be recognised.
And looking a bit more longer term, would you like to give Tommy Conway an opportunity in the first team between now and the end of the season?
Yeah, if he earns it, yeah. If he earns the right for it, last year I think it was his debut he scored on as a start when we played Millwall, although the game itself was a really bad day for us. He's a capable lad, and he's one that if he doesn't break in this season, he'll be there or thereabouts next year. So it's nice to have options like that.
And is Birmingham a good test for your players? You mentioned possibly direct. There's only 3 points between you. What are you expecting at Ashton Gate on Saturday?
Yeah, very tough game. I think it's important whenever you play sides around you that you do everything you can to win those types of games. The season for us is still one where we want to show more obvious progressions. And of course, that's always, I suppose, how you look at the league table. But and it's been quite an arduous campaign in that regard, because we can't get back-to-back wins, and so to make real progress becomes more difficult. But yeah, look, it's our next game, and because it's our next game, we want to win it, and that's what it is. That, to be honest with you, that sounds a very simple philosophy, but that's what it is. I'm not really interested in people talking in a more complex way. We have to try and finish the season. We've got 11 games left, and that's quite a bit sizable chunk. That's, it's not far off a quarter of the season where we can still make some progression, and that's what I want us to do.
We wish you well. Thank you as always.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, Rich.
Hi, Nigel.
Hello there.
Hi. You just mentioned the progression. Let's talk about the reverse fixture. I'm sure you probably don't want to be reminded of it too much, but
No,
how happy are you?
I remember it well.
How happy are you from the progression from that fixture 4 months ago until now?
So
in terms of performances, how happy are you with the progression of the performances from that fixture till now?
Yeah, very. That was a night in which, a bit like they'll be this weekend, whether they play with wing backs or whether they play with full backs, they give them a lot of width. They try and create crossing situations. We didn't stop any crosses when we played them. Consequently, we caused ourselves all sorts of problems. So on that night, I think it was Jay on the left and George Tanner on the right, and yeah, we had a bad day. Even though we started the game very, very well, but you know, you've got to be able to deal with what main threats are of your opponents, and we were very poor at that on that evening. So, but on top of that, I think we have a sort of a relatively settled type of formation. Whether I like it or you like it or anybody else likes it or not, it's irrelevant. It's more about what suits the players that we currently have available. And I think that's what it's always about. So I don't particularly want to necessarily tweak how we play just because we play somebody else. I think I'm looking at it more in terms of how we can, so our Achilles heel at the moment is giving too many soft goals away, but that probably occurs a lot more because we are more expansive and able to be a more attacking threat. So at the start of the season, I think we were a lot tighter, a lot safer. We had different players available. And we were more solid, if you like, in some respects, but we were probably a bit too one-dimensional as an attacking threat because of that. So, I try to review performance as we go, and I think we've made massive inroads in terms of our creativity. You wouldn't have believed that if you saw us last week because we were poor, but we were poor in that respect because we couldn't get hold of the ball in midfield and we weren't passing it out from the back particularly well either. So, all those things together would indicate that, last week was a bit of a bad day, but we know that we're a very capable side. What we have to do is try and combine our ability to cause teams problems but keep things tight, and a lot of that is to do with either concentration or sometimes ability, I'm afraid.
and you mentioned you've been working on the counter-attack in the week. Is that how you see the game kind of panning out on Saturday, or is that a weakness in the Birmingham team that you can exploit, you think?
It's what we're good at. It's what we're very, very good at. So we worked at that because we were working at defending it as well. So, I think it's been... training's important. Of course, training's very important. But it's only important if players train how they expect to play. So I've never been a believer in saving yourself for games, because most players that you'll see at this level aren't good enough for that. Even the top end players, very top end players, they still train to play, and that's the crux to it. So I would rather train for shorter periods of time and it be competitive and have a bit of an edge to it, and I like that. Because you can't turn it on and off like a tap. It's a skill, and anybody who thinks that they can, you're probably going to have a bit of a shock, aren't they? Because you can't do that. So the players have trained hard this week, and if they play at the weekend in the way that we've applied ourselves this week, we'll be fine.
And how's Matty James? Do you have to be? It's good to see him back last weekend. Do you have to be cautious with his minutes as you have been with Joe Williams in the last few weeks?
No, because it's a different. I think we discussed this last time that his injury is a different type of scenario. So he's pain free, and that means he can just crack on regardless. When you've got players who've got reoccurring soft tissue injuries, then that's when alarm bells should be ringing, and that means that the approach has to be more measured. So that's not to say we don't think that with Matty. He's a very important member of our squad, but a lot of it is to do with his ability to play with either discomfort or as it is at the minute, no pain at all. So he's fine. So he'll be available for selection at the weekend.
Good news. And to go back to Nahki Wells, did he ask to play in the under-23 game in the week?
He had the option to play and he played, which is great.
How do you kind of get the best out of him in the first team? Is it a case where you have to tweak anything, or is it can just be a like for like?
I don't have to get the best out of him. He has to get the best out of himself if he gets the opportunity, and that's the thing. It's about earning the place to start with, and then the ones who earn the place need to stay there. And the way that they do that is by playing well or delivering what it is that they're in the side to do. So, I think it would be fair to say that our forward players have contributed very positively to the team this season, and that includes Nahki when he's played and when he's come on as a sub. He's a bit unfortunate, but life's like that, isn't it? So we can't. I don't make statements like saying to players, if you're in the side, stay there, and then just change it around because it suits me to do that. That may happen occasionally. I won't say that sometimes won't happen, but the bottom line is that players need to play well to keep in the side, and which means if you're one of those that's currently not there, you might have to make sure you have a really good game when you get your chance. And that again, that's the beauty of competition, and I think healthy competition. I was going to say fair, but fairness is not something that I think in this game I would be kidding myself and you if I said that. I'd strive to be fair, but it's impossible to be fair all the time. And we'll all see fairness as being slightly different anyway, won't we?
Talking of healthy competition, is Max OLeary back in training? I saw a clip of him online.
He's been out in the field all week, so he'll be in and about.
Is from the last 3 games, is it now Dan Bentley's shirt to lose?
I haven't even given it a thought. He's played well since he's been in there. I wouldn't think of it like that. He's in there, stay there. Yeah.
Advice. And one more question from me is Riley Towler. I watched him in the week, and he came off just before half time. Is there an injury update on him?
It's just a precaution. I think I explained to you before the nature of it. A back issue, which I think for somebody of his age, and certainly how much he's grown over the last 2 or 3 years, it's very important that we err on the side of caution. He's made great strides throughout this season, and certainly between the end of last season and the start of pre-season, he really did develop physically as well. Not just in terms of his ability to play, but he was a midfield player only 2-3 years ago. So he's made real progressions over the last 12 months. It's important that he is able to. I'm not writing him off for the season at this point, but I had a conversation with him the other day and said, well, he's had a really interesting year. Even though he's not played a lot for us, he's had a very successful loan period. He was good in pre-season for us last summer. So he's one that we can. He's one for the future, certainly.
Is it if you're looking into next season, then is he a player that you'd be hoping to give some minutes to over the next, I don't know how many games, 11 games left?
Yeah, I don't think about it as being, I hope I can give minutes. I'm hopeful that his progression will continue and that he will be a very pleasant surprise for us, and that is our academy's produced some excellent players, but they're all sort of attacking mould, and I think it would be nice for us to get some defensive thugs too out of the academy. So not that Riley's out, he's a top lad, really good sense of humour as well. But even Duncan, when he was in the squad, it's a big ask, but I think for him but it's nice to be able to involve some of the youngsters in match day squads just for the experience as much as anything. And it gives them a taste of what to work towards, because I think once you get to the under 18s in an academy, you've got to start thinking about where I'm going to break into a first team, whether that's with the club that you're at or somewhere else, and that's why it's important to have this competitive nature to how we develop players. It's not just about developing attractive players in terms of their ability on the ball. It's game effective players, and I think for anybody in our academy at the moment, they would recognise at least that they're at a club where if they continue to improve, they've got a chance, which is great for us. It's really what we're trying to do, but of course we need to supplement that with a side that can function first, and we're working towards that. But it's proven to be a bit, it's been up and down this season so far.
Yeah, certainly good motivation for him. Thanks, okay, Nigel. See you Saturday. No problem.
Hi, Nigel.
Okay.
Just on that, is it harder? And I'm not speaking about Riley specifically, but is it harder for younger defensive players than say younger attacking players to make, because of the physicality of playing in defence in the Championship, for example?
I'm gonna be honest and say I don't know whether I'm in a position where I could give you an answer that would be accurate. I don't know. It's only my feeling. I've not worked in youth football for 15 years or so, maybe more. So I'm my instinct says that we've gone through if you like a bit of a revolution in terms of how academies are constructed and their philosophies. I mean, I can't generalise, I don't suppose, and have any authority on that subject. But what I would say is that once you get into the real world of, and when I mean that the real world of first team football, managers will always want defenders who can actually defend first. So, it's all right learning how to look good on the ball and have a reasonable range of passing, but I'm a big believer in recognising what a player's strengths are and making sure that we recognise that destructive players are very, very useful too. So creativity is the one thing that unlocks doors in games, and certainly the higher level you get to, it becomes more important. And we're playing, whether people think is or not, that the second league in England is a really good league. So for youngsters to be able to compete at that level, with the games programme being as hectic as it is a big ask, and players who are doing well, really have shown some maturity. I don't. I never underestimate the quality, if you like, of good defenders, and that is that they've got to be able to defend first. It's not about having socks over your knees and looking good. Stop the ball going in the net.
The revolution you speak about within academies, do you mean there's perhaps, is that a positive thing? Or,
of course it is. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, what's been the revolution?
Well, okay, so it all happened, around the same time as, I suppose, mandatory coaching qualifications came in. So, we've been playing catch up in on the technical side. I think some people would recognise for a while, but when you go through those types of events, you'll be able to remember, as most people will, when we criticise our national side for trying to play the same way that foreign teams play, and we've lost what we are, and that's aggression and tempo. And international football's different, and club football at the top end now is different. So, the game evolves, whether you like it or not. The game evolves. The players who are successful evolve with the evolution of the game. But what doesn't change is the art of defending is something which we need to make sure we coach, as well as the art of unlocking doors too.
Is that something you filter down at the club, or is that something that you've noticed perhaps hasn't been there or has been there?
No, it's not. No, it's not an observation. It's just my personal opinion. And with Tins now, with Brian Tinian, who now is our head of the academy director, he's a realist too. So I think our academy is in a very strong state at the moment. It's always been well run. It's really well run. We've got good players in the system, but of course there will be years that there will be barren years too, and that's the whole ethos of having a positive academy. We want to produce players for us, but we want to produce them for football. But for them to know what they're trying to produce, there's got to be a decent link throughout the club, and I think that's the case. And I don't need to interfere with anything that's happening at that end of the building, because it's working very, very well.
On the academy players that have made the first team step up, certain ones, and I appreciate this question is going to be heavily laden with irony, so no doubt you're going to have a wry smile when I say it. But
right,
there's been,
I'll give you a
with
chance.
Alex, with Antoine and Hanno, I know he's not academy. There's obviously talk, there's obviously speculation about them and where they may or may not be playing their football. How do they as individuals deal with that as young men? Because they all look at social media, they all, once upon a time you can say, I don't read the newspapers, but they are all active in the media realm. So how do you how are they able to deal with that extra pressure? I don't know what it is.
Okay.
But...
Well, no, mate, it's a really good question, and it's one that actually is. I'm not going to put up the shutters because it's really important to recognise that actually players in that sort of a position. It's all right showing maturity on the pitch, but just because they are able to reproduce good performances on the pitch mean that they are able to deal, or they found ways of dealing with that external pressure, and that is one of expectation. So, it's for somebody to say they're not aware of links would be, I think, would be quite a foolish thing to say, because they'll all be acutely aware. And of course, we as a football club have to really think about our own situation as well. So I'll give you an example of that. For players who turn down opportunities. So Hanno Masengo, for instance, we what we can't do is get to a point where we've been in this situation before as a club, and that is players' contracts running down and end up with speculation about whether they want to stay, whether they don't want to stay, and it creates more negativity than it does positivity. So what I would say is this: we are working hard and continue to work hard to hang on to our best players, because that is that's how we will progress as a football team. But what we can't do is ignore market forces, and that is, if players or their representatives are being very stubborn about it, then there becomes a threshold that you have to start thinking about getting the best price that you can for that talent, because otherwise the investment that you make in them, both in terms of financial time, is one that somebody else is going to benefit from. So that doesn't change, and that's not to say that players are going to stay or going to go. That is me having a sort of business head on and saying we have to protect our own interests, but in the meantime, the players that you've mentioned, the Han Noahs, the Alex Scotts, the Antoine Semenyas of our current team, and there are more who will attract interest from other clubs. We want to keep them wherever possible. But players and agents have increasing, not power, but they have various options, and it's natural for it's actually quite good in the sense that if their agents are being busy elsewhere in trying to drum up some interest, the players may be oblivious of the detail of it, and my view on it is always this: they're our players and they'll go on our terms. If we have to lose them, they'll go on our terms, and I think that's important. We don't want to necessarily be a selling club just to keep afloat, because what that doesn't do is that doesn't give our fan base any encouragement that what we're trying to do actually is produce a side which is enjoyable to watch, will be successful, and has players that have come through our own system. I mean, that's the ideal world. That may be pie in the sky. Who cares whether it's pie in the sky or not? It's what we aspire to do, and this current group of players who have come through either our system or have been in our system for a while are very, very promising signs for us. But like with every business, and football's not, shouldn't feel it's above that. We have to make decisions which are right for the business. And I think what's important moving forward is that it's verbalised and that people understand at least what the rationale is behind how we operate. And in fact, that's going to be increasingly important, because we're a bit behind course on where we would like to be, but there are some encouraging signs too.
Behind course in terms of where the team are at, in terms of where you want them, or behind course in terms of what we're talking about specifically in terms of transfer strategy and stuff like that?
Well, we're where we are because the financial situation is what it is. I mean, we've actually made better progressions in terms of the football side of it than, especially with if you look at how many people have gone and how many have come in, and we've as I said before, we've made some real progressions this year in a footballing sense. What we haven't done is necessarily turn that into the points that we should have had, but that's life. And the financial figures that we're dealing with as a club will also maybe alter the speed of change, but you can go through a sluggish 6 months and then things pick up, and like we've had this year with the effectiveness of some of our young players coming into the side. I think that's been really a very, very pleasant outcome. I was going to say surprise, but whether it's a surprise or not, it's a pleasing outcome. And we're much better placed than we were 12 months ago. Absolutely.
Good stuff. Last one for me, just a quick one, just a quick detail. What was Thomas's problem, or what was it?
It was a kick. It was a kick.
I was a knock. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, look, when he came off the pitch and he was alongside me, I said, "Look, just go and sit down." He wanted to go back on, but I just thought it's not worth putting at risk further an injury that he picked up, because we didn't know what it was at that point. And we did all right with 10 men, actually. We looked a bit sad. That's not a go at him, by the way. That's just the game fizzled out, actually, then. And Tom's fine. He's fine. He's trained this week, and he's got his singular smile that he has on his face, and he's interested in that, but he's very likeable too.
Good stuff. Thanks, Nigel.
Yeah, pleasure.
Hi Nigel, hope you're well. Just on the topic of the importance of transfers, in the last few weeks it's been said that the club are looking at getting ahead of recruitment. Is that something you can back up, substantiate, and is it a role that you look to fill this summer?
No, we're looking to tweak how things work, but that's not on the agenda at the moment, no.
And just briefly then, got two good goalkeepers, Dan Bentley and O'Leary, but also Harvey Wells. Richard played well on Tuesday. As players that have gone into the system, it's going to be very hard for him to get into the first team. Is he someone, do you think, that perhaps might benefit from a loan, or does he get experience from being a second choice in the Championship sometimes?
Do you mean Harvey or do you mean Max? What are you talking about now?
With Harvey, sorry. Is he someone that you think would benefit from a loan move because there's so much competition?
Yeah,
or
possibly.
Do you think that...
Possibly, but the goalkeeping position is a very, it's one that you've got to give real thought to, because what I don't want one of our goalkeepers going on loan somewhere and having splinters on the backside. So what's the point of that? If I was taking a player and I couldn't guarantee they were going to play, so I wouldn't expect somebody to do that as well. So if Will Boos, who's one of our younger keepers, or I think he's older than Max, but older than Harv rather. He's been out on loan this year. He's played 35 games, so he's doing okay. And it's not an easy one. It's like somebody like Max, for instance. Max needed to play some football this year, and I would have been pretty, if it had not broken into our first team, for instance, I'm pretty certain that we would have been looking to place him on loan somewhere, because otherwise you've got a very talented goalkeeper who's had 2 years on the sidelines without getting game experience. And goalkeepers, probably more so than outfield players, need to synchronise their timing, basically, because it's all about decision making as a goalkeeper. You can have a quiet afternoon and have one thing to do, and if you get that wrong, everybody will remember that. And that's down to conditioning in terms of your mind, being ready for matches. And to be ready for matches, you've got to play matches, and that's always the difficult question for any player, but very much so for goalkeepers.